I have no idea how Mike Rhodes did it, but somehow Penn State men's basketball was able to land a former top 75 recruit to its team with just a couple scholarships left.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host, and I am joined by another special guest, and it is Pat Koerbler, Black Shoe Diaries, SB Nation. Pat, it's great to have you back on with everything that has transpired here with basketball.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Zach. And I feel like I came on a couple times a month ago, and since then, we've had some basketball news, but obviously they're starting to run out of spots and almost have a full team now. So exciting times as always for Penn State basketball.
Yeah, 13 scholarship spots. One is left. Pat, we're going to talk about Favor Aire, Bragi Gudmundsson, and who that last scholarship could go to and how this team just kind of the outlook for them at this point. Pat, where can people keep up with what you do?
BlackShoeDiaries.com. As always, check out the blog. I feel like end of May and into June can sometimes be a little light, obviously, for something that focuses on football and basketball. But as things begin to pick up into the summer, we'll have loads of stuff. And then, you can also follow me on Twitter at Koerbler, Poerbler on Twitter.
And of course, check out HappyValleyInsider.com. Penn State Rivals making this podcast the official go-to podcast for Penn State Rivals. And that website is HappyValleyInsider.com for all the latest on Penn State athletics. Okay, formalities are done, Pat. Favor Aire comes in. This is another center. Qudus Wahab, I didn't know that he put his name into the NBA draft, and he was kind of getting scouted and seeing if he would make that decision. He pulled out, he removed his name from consideration, and he's going to play with Penn State for one season. That kind of left Demetrius Lilly to seem that he's listed as a power forward hybrid. I mean, he just has the height, and I think his athleticism and his weight kind of gravitate him more to being a center. But I would say with what Mike Rhodes wants to do in this new Penn State team, that they were a little thin as where they projected at center with Wahab leaving in a year. Lilly, of course, would have 4 years of eligibility at this point in time. So for them to go get Favor Aire, who has all the potential in the world, if you look at Rivals, and when he was in high school, he was rated the 66th best player in all of the country when he was just a high school senior 1 season ago. So he was at Miami for a year. Then the year before, he was ranked in the top 75 by Rivals in all of the country. And now Penn State gets him on the roster. So I am all for this move. I know Ace Baldwin and Nick Kern and some of the other guys are going to be very important for this season. But if Favor Aire can live up to his potential, this could be probably up there with the best transfers that they landed in this group.
Definitely. Like you said, one of the more highly touted prospects as a recruit that's coming into Penn State. And unlike some of these other guys or unlike some other transfers around the country, right, he's just simply 1 year out of being in high school. Spent that 1 year at Miami, got a little bit of playing time here and there, but obviously Miami had a really good ball club this year. They didn't really need to call on him too much. But like you said, the potential is still there. 6'11", and the 215 to 220 pound range. Obviously, he's going to be a guy that will be putting on muscle as he gets older and as he's coming into Penn State's strength and conditioning program. But I think the thing that jumps out about him, and granted, I didn't watch a ton of him at Miami because he didn't play a ton of Miami.
Nope.
But when he was a prospect coming out of school, super athletic. You turn on his high school highlights, and it's a lot of blocking shots. It's not just a kid that's 6'11" or near 7 foot that doesn't really, isn't coordinator, doesn't know what he's doing, or is kind of falling over himself. He's a very, very good athlete with length, with size. It's just a matter of, understanding the game and becoming a better basketball player. For Penn State to get a kid that will have 3 years of eligibility and perhaps a red shirt, we'll see what happens this season. I think, Penn State would certainly hope that he can come in and be Wahab's backup right away. But, just a kid filled with potential. And if say that he would have came to Penn State instead of Keba last year, perhaps he's kind of in the same spot that Keba would be in, that he would have had more playing time, would have got, his feet underneath him. So we'll see what happens this coming season. But like you said, he's one of the more exciting transfer prospects that they were able to reel in this cycle.
And I also like that he comes in from a winning culture. Miami is on the right track. The Hurricanes have done very well in the past 2 NCAA tournaments, Elite 8 appearances. And that's something that Penn State, I'm not trying to say, well, they didn't make it to the Final Four. They didn't make it to the championship. They are a very good team with what they've done. And I know they're a little more guard centric. They focus on the backcourt a little more with what they like to do down there. So Aire, I just don't think he was utilized the right way. And I think he realized that. But I like that he comes from a good coaching staff. He comes from a winning culture. So it's not like you have to totally rebrand the mindset and get him situated with what Mike Rhodes and everyone want to do.
Definitely. I also think, my 2 favorite sports, especially as far as following up college, over football and basketball. For football, right, we see these 4-star and 5-star prospects. You go through the top 100. They're all basically going to the same schools, right? They're going to Ohio State. They're going to Alabama. They're going to Georgia. And the thought process with that is, right, even if I don't start at Georgia, if I don't start at Ohio State, I go there 2 or 3 years. I develop within that program. I practice with them. And I can go somewhere else I can play right away. Basketball, and we kind of see this in basketball too, but basketball really is a sport, even more so than football, where you need to be playing the games, right? Of course, there's drills and practices, not to say they're not important in basketball, but basketball is really just flat out a sport where you grow and learn the game the best through playing the game. So I think for so many of these guys, right, in the top 100 kids, they see, Miami, or they see Duke, or they see North Carolina. Not to say that Miami is at that level, but they see these top tier programs coming out of high school and they think, oh, I'll go there, until they realize that, oh, playing time isn't as accessible there. So coming to Penn State, you like to think that Aire is going to have more, playing time, clearer path to playing time. And I think that was something that obviously he was interested in.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely get minutes off the bench. Wahab was typically around 25 to 30. He's dealt with some injury issues. I don't know how Penn State projects a Demetrius Lilly. It's because I don't know how they're going to use those forward positions. I think that they're going to go smaller. I think that Wahab's just going to kind of be the big man in the room. He's going to be the big man on the floor. And then, so someone like a Puff Johnson at 6'8" is going to be your 4, when that isn't really, at least in traditional basketball. Usually it was 6 foot, 6'5", 6'8" was your small forward. And then you had 2 big guys. You had a mountain of a man at 7'1", 7'2" as your center. And then your power forward was your 6'10", 6'11" guy, someone who just wasn't right at that mark, but a little bit underneath it. Because I don't think they're going to go Lilly and Wahab at the same time. I don't think they're going to go Aire and Wahab at the same time either. I think those 2 guys, it's going to be Wahab and then it's going to be Aire, and maybe we might see some Lilly, but he's still in the fold. He can't enter the transfer portal. He's stuck at Penn State, but I think Penn State now has a lot of depth in Big Ten basketball. They need these guys. We're going to talk about Bragi. This one is more of it's kind of figuring out who he is and what he can bring to the team, because recruiting sites didn't have a player profile on him before. I'm not surprised, because not many people are scouting Icelandic basketball players. Pat, you and I are going to talk about that in just a second. But first, let's hear from our sponsor of today's episode, and that is Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs, their pants and shorts are some of the most comfiest, and that is for 3 reasons. Okay, so first, it is that fit. You will feel and look better wearing Bird Dogs. Comfort, stretchy fabric. That's all you need to know. They're going to make your they're going to make your legs look great and feel great. And they're comfier than all your other shorts and pants. That's without a doubt. And then the last reason is versatility. They give you the freedom to wear 1 pair of shorts, 1 pair of pants on the golf course, to a meeting, on a date, hanging out with friends, you name it, Bird Dogs. And I've never had a pair of Bird Dogs myself. So I said, okay, let me try this out. Let me see if they can live up to what they're promoting here. And they definitely do. I like the feel. I like the fit of Bird Dog shorts and pants. And I don't know if they compare to any of my other clothes. So go check them out, birddogs.com. And when you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege and you enter promo code LockedOnCollege, they are going to throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. That is right. All you got to do is birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege, enter promo code LockedOnCollege, and you will get a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. And again, thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Pat Koerbler joining me on this episode to talk Penn State men's basketball. And Pat, Bragi Gudmundsson comes over from Iceland, and he was playing pro basketball in Iceland. So he is an intriguing prospect just from the fact that he is essentially in the NBA equivalent over in his native country. And he comes to Penn State. He is a little older. He's 19. He'll be turning 20 as a true freshman. Averaged 10 points a game, but again, against grown men. So, Pat, what do you think he brings to the table as this 12th guy now on the roster with one more spot open?
I think the first thing that sticks out about Goodmanson is the shooting, right? You turn on his highlights, and whether it's catch and shoot, whether it's creating off the dribble, whether it's step backs, whether it's going to his right or his left, he can shoot the ball, and it's both in the mid range and even from way beyond the arc. So I don't think the range will be a problem. I was going to say I don't think the shooting will be a problem, but you never know how that is going to translate, right? Playing Icelandic basketball, I just checked. There's only been one NBA player from Iceland. Oddly enough, his last name is also Goodmanson, so perhaps
they're related.
Good sign. Maybe Goodmanson is the Smith of Iceland. I don't really know, but right. So he's not coming from a place where there's a tons of NBA prospects, let alone tons of D1 prospects. So how that shooting is going to translate when he's playing against bigger guys, longer guys, more athletic guys, the game speeds up. We're not really sure, but if you're going to take a chance on something in basketball, or you're going to take a chance on different attributes in basketball, right? You want to take a chance on length, you want to take a chance on athleticism, or you want to take a chance on something like shooting. So we'll see how the shooting works out. You look at different schools, Gonzaga, St. Mary's, a couple different other schools on the West Coast, and they have had a lot of success going to different parts of the world to find Division I basketball players. So perhaps Penn State does have a diamond in the rough here. I think if you're Mike Rhodes and Penn State, it was just one of those situations of you have room, right? Penn State doesn't, or at least a couple weeks ago, didn't lack for open scholarships on their team, and you have a kid who can shoot at the level that Goodmanson can, and the risk is hopefully going to be worth or the reward will hopefully be worth the risk.
Yeah, you mentioned it. He can shoot, he can rebound, he can assist. I like the way that he's taken over games. One of his best performances included 34 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. So he's kind of that do-it-all combo guard. He's got nice size at 6'5", and he's not afraid. This is similar to some of the other guys that they brought in, whether it's Raquandis Mitchell or Ace Baldwin. They're not afraid of contact, and neither is Bragi. He is more than capable of driving through the lane, going and chasing after the basketball. So part of that is effort, but fearlessness, I think, can describe the way that he plays. And again, going up, I'm not comparing him to Luka Doncic, but one of the points that I want to make is that Luka Doncic got extremely criticized for play. He only played over in Europe. What's the level of competition? Is he going to be able to handle it in the NBA? And clearly he has, right? He went in the top 5, and he's been a good player, a good prospect early on too. It hasn't taken him a long time to develop. In the case of Bragi and Luka, what they do have in common is that they have gone up against grown men, and they've held their own against grown men. So even though Icelandic basketball isn't going to be the best on the planet, he's, as a 17, 18, now 19-year-old, doing what he's doing. He can go and score 30 points against guys in their late mid-20s who are doing this for a living over in Iceland. I think is going to translate well. I think those stats are they're going to carry over. I don't think he's going to go from 10 to 20 points a game. I think he will be someone that can average 10 points a game. He's not afraid of the contact. He's not afraid to go up and get the rebound. So I like effort guys. If he can give you 110% every single game, whether that's in 20, 30 minutes, or even if that's 10 to 15, and he's someone that will go do all the dirty work, then this is a good get for Penn State and someone that you can develop. And I think Joe Crispin probably had a lot of influence on this. I feel like Joe Crispin can work with a player like this and develop that natural scoring ability that he has, as you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if Joe Crispin was involved in this, and obviously he's a part of the staff, I'm sure he played some part. Shooting's just one of those things that a team can never have enough of, right? And even if right, you look at Andrew Funk, and you can look at the Texas A&M game, you can look at the Texas game. And in the Texas game itself, right, he struggled from deep, and yes, it would have been great if he could have hit a couple more threes. But what made Andrew Funk so great, beyond obviously making shots, was just the gravity that he has as a shooter. So Bragi can come over and he can show that shooting skill. And just by being on the floor, that gravity can help, right? You watch the Warriors, you watch the Sixers, you watch the Heat. Good shooters are going to change the way that an offense can play, right? How the Sixers looked back in the day when they had Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and Jimmy Butler, who at the time wasn't shooting threes, versus how the Warriors played when they had Steph and Clay and Durant, right? The spacing was so much different. So not expecting Bragi to shoot at any of their levels necessarily, but just by being a good shooter, that's something that Penn State can always have more of.
Locked On Nittany Lions, your go-to podcast for Penn State rivals. Visit happyvalleyinsider.com for all the latest for football, men's basketball, everything Penn State athletics. Pat, as we move into the final segment, it's now figuring out that final roster spot for Penn State. Is there a transfer that they're really in good conversation with, like a Favor Aire, someone that is really out of left field when you bring him in and can have a good impact? Or are they scraping the barrel at this point? Are they going to go? I feel like they're going to have to get a high school prospect, because all of the targets that they were after are either now in Happy Valley or they've gone elsewhere. Is there anybody left in the transfer portal that you can see them getting, or do you agree and think that it's going to be a high school player?
Yeah, transfer portal is definitely drying up as we are now heading into June, right? Most of these guys are enrolling at their schools or will be enrolling soon. So there's really not too much left on the transfer market. Not to say that I wouldn't be shocked if Penn State picks up another transfer, but right now that doesn't necessarily seem like it'll be the case.
Yep.
So I think, right, if we were gambling here, I would probably put the better odds at it being a high school prospect. As far as who they bring in, who really knows at this point? They do have that extra scholarship. I think for me, what I would look for, and this shouldn't surprise you based upon our last segment, but I would just look for another guy who's a shooter or scorer, something along those lines. Somebody that can play the 2 or the 3. Obviously, the more length that you have, the better. But if you can find a guard or a big wing who can put the ball in the basket and has potential to be something, I think that's where Penn State should be looking. Just because when I look at this roster, I think Mike Rhodes, all things considered, did a really, really good job. I think that they just lack that one extra scoring punch, right? You look at somebody like Noah Thomason, who ended up at Georgia, transferred from Niagara. I think if you put him on this team, Penn State looks like a pretty complete team. So I think if you're Mike Rhodes right now, you're just hoping to get another scorer, another shooter, and hopefully you can put together some more offensive punch to the roster.
How do you project this team right now? When you look at some early publications, looking at the 2023-24 Big Ten standings, they have Penn State in dead last. And I don't buy that whatsoever. I think that I think they can be in the top 10 of the Big Ten. I'm not saying they're going to overwhelm the conference, but this is a team that I think can go 500 in Big Ten play, maybe a little bit better, and be around the NCAA tournament. I think it was on one of the shows that we did not too long ago, where I did say that this roster was being built to be an NCAA tournament contender, to get one of those bids. I don't think they're going to win a championship. I don't think they're going to go to a Final Four, Elite Eight, but who's to say the round of 32 is out of question with the way that they constructed this roster? I love the coaching staff. Okay. Mike Rhodes and who he's brought in is a big part of why I believe this team can have so much direction. And it's a veteran-laden team, and they're good veterans. They've been through it when it comes to college basketball, and they're marrying different parts that all work together. So I think they can surprise the Big Ten. Part of that is that element of surprise, right? I think that's what helped Micah Shrewsbury a season ago, is that people didn't look at Penn State as a team. Of course, I'm not saying okay, everybody overlooked Penn State, and that's why they were able to beat Illinois 3 times. But if you put Penn State on your big board down here and they play up here, they're going to beat you because you're not expecting them to play as sound and solid as they did. So I think that helped Micah Shrewsbury last year. And I think that's going to help Mike Rhodes and company this season, is that they are just going to surprise some teams, some coaching staffs, and the doubters in the media and the spectators, because they have a lot of potential that people just aren't giving them credit for.
I think one of the unique things with the Big Ten is that it feels like every year, maybe I'm off on this a couple of years, but it feels like most years the difference between like the 4th best team and the 12th best team is like nothing.
A little bit.
Yeah, right? Like just a shot here or there. I mean, I just went back and checked the standings just because I couldn't remember the exact numbers. But right, Nebraska finished 13th at 9-11, where Michigan State finished 4th and they were 11-8. So right, there's 2.5 games just because Michigan State ended up not playing that one game.
Right.
Such small differences between some of the better teams in the Big Ten and teams that are gonna be playing on Wednesday or Thursday in the Big Ten tournament. So I think for Penn State, right, that's always going to kind of be the spot that Penn State lives in. I don't anticipate Penn State basketball, at least in the next 5 years, even decade, they ever get to a level where they are head and shoulders up atop the Big Ten. They're always going to kind of be in that middle of the pack, which for Penn State basketball, I know I personally would take. So
yeah,
it's so tough to say, is Penn State an NCAA tournament team or are they not? I think right now it's probably smarter money just to say that they're likely going to be out, just because there are so many different pieces that are coming in here, right? Even when you look at Micah Shrewsbury's first year at Penn State, and he was bringing in a lot of different guys, they at least had 5 or 6 guys that stayed with the program that they could kind of count on as far as setting the culture and setting the standard. That isn't necessarily going to happen at Penn State. Obviously, he's bringing in Ace Baldwin from VCU, bringing in Nick Kern. So I'm sure Mike Rhodes will lean on them a little bit. And obviously Kanye Clary's staying and Demetrius Lilly. There's the pieces there. But it does just feel like so much change for a team and a program that, historically has not always clicked right away. So once again, if this was a gambling show, I would probably lean towards Penn State not making the NCAA tournament. But I think they're going to be right there. And it's just a matter of, can they play well at the right times? There were times last year where Penn State did not look like an NCAA tournament team. But right as the year closed out, they got things together and put together an incredible run in the Big Ten tournament. And all of a sudden they're a couple of shots away from making the Sweet 16. So I think Penn State's going to have to hope that Ace Baldwin makes a really significant jump as a scorer, just because, like I said, a couple of minutes ago, I do think that they're going to lack a little bit of scoring. So we'll see what happens. The nice thing is Mike Rhodes is not building this out just to be a 1 year and done type team, just because of the amount of transfers that they took that have multiple years of eligibility, Ace Baldwin included. This is just going to be year one of the process. So if we see a similar first season like we saw with Shrewsbury, where the potential showed and you can see that the pieces were there, I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happens this year for Rhodes and company.
That's why we bring you on, Pat, because you laid it out perfectly. I appreciate the time again, as always. Can't wait to connect again. And where can people connect with what you do for Black Shoe Diaries and everything else online?
Yeah, that's blackshoediaries.com as always for your Penn State football and Penn State basketball needs. And then also on Twitter at Koerbler, Poerbler.
And I'm excited to start talking some football with you as well. I know it's been primarily men's basketball, but you've been, I think, done such a great job. You've been so entrenched, enamored when it comes to the transfer portal and the way that Mike Rhodes has built out this roster. So the next time that we do chat, I think we're going to have a little more of a football angle, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. As much as I enjoy the basketball program, and I can't say that I'm like one of the true sickos of the basketball program, Micah Shrewsbury is kind of the one that got me to jump on the bandwagon. So I can't take too much credit for being a crazy basketball fan. Unfortunately, I am a psycho football fan, though. Like, I absolutely live and die with this stupid team. So looking forward to this season where I absolutely need a Big Ten championship. So yeah, excited to talk about that.